everybody, and welcome to this, and this is finally X-Men in the 2000s Roundtable. Now, there's been a lot of false starts and stops, there's been scheduling conflicts, there's been people not being able to get on Skype, there's been people not being able to get on Twitter, people being busy, people doing stuff, all this different stuff that's happened, me just forgetting about it, that's made it so that it's been 6 months since one of these. Finally all the arrangements came together. Not all the people that were supposed to be on this, so maybe Brown Coke Eric will be joining us halfway through this if he is able to get on, but he was scheduled to come on this one, but hopefully maybe he'll be on the next one, if not on this one. But I have been able to get together a group of the people who have joined me for the past ones. Nice round table here. I am Carl as always, and I am joined by Ben.
Hello, true believers.
I am joined by Andrew.
Hello, everybody.
And returning for the first time since I believe the 70s one, maybe? The 60s, 70s? Joe.
Hey, everybody.
Alrighty, so awesome stuff here. So let's go ahead and get into the 2000s. Now, it was a big year for Marvel 2000. They went through some financial trouble, and as a result, they decided to do a lot of restructuring. It was when Joe Quesada came into power. A lot of things happened towards making the Marvel comics more like the movies, which we'll get into in a second. But the first part of the 2000s was really following on from the 90s, and I've not ever read or seen because Grant Morrison's was such a jump-on point, I decided not to read anything before that. And I was thinking, oh, not much will have happened. It was a year, after all. You know, how much could happen in the year? Little did I know. I should have known X-Men. You know what I mean? So I started reading X-Men, Uncanny X-Men 381, which is after the infamous 6-month jump, which I was learning about, where at some point they could put a revolution badge on everything and jumped all the titles ahead of 6 months and filled in the gaps in between, but really didn't. This is where Chris Claremont actually returned to the X-Men books for the first time since 1992, and he was put on writing both X-Men and Uncanny in 2 different teams with completely redesigned costumes. But I started reading it, and I was totally lost, especially since I hadn't read a lot of 90s stuff. It was Jean as the Phoenix. I was like, what? There's Cable with Cyclops' mask. Cyclops is dead. They've all got different costumes. They're all different places. Colossus is dead. It's like, oh my god, I'm lost. So I had to go onto UncannyX-Men.net, thank god, and I read a lot of stuff, and dear god, afterwards my brain hurt. So many different timelines and all this different stuff that happened, and them going forward in time, back in time, and powers starting and powers stopping, and the mutants got their powers taken away, then they all got them put back. Some people died, some people came back. It was so crazy and convoluted, and I can see exactly why people got this perception of the X-Men, as we said in the 90s. It leaked into 2000. And the 6-month jump was not a good jumping on point at all, because it made it even more confusing, because the people who read the comics for years didn't know what the hell was going on. So, like, everybody was like reading it like, what? Okay, so we have to do a bit of backtracking just to fill in the gaps a little bit. I was reading up on this. After the wedding between Jean Grey and Cyclops, they went on a honeymoon. And during that honeymoon, Jean started possessing the powers of the Phoenix. She actually changed into the Phoenix costume, and I believe some storyline after that, they went into the future and raised Cable, which apparently was quite good. But during that, Rachel Grey Summers died of old age or something. She's the one who sent them. It's very convoluted. And she basically, in her dying wish, said, I want you to take the codename Phoenix. Which to me is cool, because to me, Jean Grey is cooler as the Phoenix. She never really had a code name when she came back, because Marvel Girl was very 60s, and it didn't really make sense for her to be called Marvel Girl in the new era, the new Jim Lee onwards era. So she was just Jean Grey in the cartoon. Everybody had a code name, and it was just Jean Grey. So to me, making her Phoenix made a lot of sense. And by the time we get to the 6-month jump, she's in a sort of an orange Phoenixy costume. She's very overpowered with the Phoenix powers. She's very much embraced that power. She, I believe, she has the memories of Phoenix from the whole time when she merged with Maddie, and she knows all the stuff that happened, and now she's completely connected. She's always had the Phoenix inside her, and now she's embraced it and all this stuff. Also, in between this time, Cyclops died because they found Destiny's journals, which we'll be coming up to in a bit when we get to Extreme X-Men, and they found something about the first storyline in the 2000s was called the 12, which is 12 mutants that Apocalypse wanted to use to create his new Horseman or end the world or something or other. And fight, and Cyclops sacrificed himself for the group, merging with Apocalypse, and that everybody thought Cyclops was dead. So where we jump on, really, where we can really start talking about is the Apocalypse 12 storyline. Has anybody else read it?
I enjoyed it, but as I'm sure everyone who has listened to these podcasts know by now, I am not a Cyclops fan, so the end result of his death was pretty good. I'm also an Apocalypse fan, so it was good to see him stealing these big, powerful mutants over the world, and it's like, oh my god, Apocalypse could finally do something great here. And, you know, Scott ended up sacrificing himself, which I was so thrilled at because, as I said, I wasn't a fan. But what disappointed me more than this storyline was the follow-up after it, because it didn't take too long for Scott to return from the dead. And when he did, he was half merged with Apocalypse for a while. So he was kind of badass Cyclops. And it just... it was a bit of a mess afterwards. The core storyline I did enjoy, but again, it was the follow-on from it that just, don't go there.
Yeah, it was still
20 months ago, he was dead.
Yeah, X-Men was still very convoluted at this point, and I guess the idea was, during this storyline, the hint was that Apocalypse was going to change time to basically make the Age of Apocalypse timeline. That was the hint that was going on in that storyline, and that's what he was trying to do. And this is significant for costume fans in that this was the last time that Cyclops ever appeared in the Jim Lee X-Men animated series hair-free costume. After that, he would come back and, as Ben said, he was tainted by Apocalypse after Jean separated them. She used the Phoenix to separate the two. And as a result, Scott, when he finally came back to the X-Men, he wore a black and silver outfit with like long, almost Gambit overgrown hair. He was like badass Cyclops. He was a renegade and things, and that kind of just disappeared when Grant Morrison came back on. But so the 6-month jump time period after this has happened, we've got teams which Marrow was on the X-Men before this, and she kind of just disappears with no real explanation when Claremont came back.
Goodbye, Marrow. We all love you.
I was supposed to say, I really liked the character of Marrow because she was kind of like a different kind of Wolverine, because, you know, Wolverine was getting tamer now, and every once in a while they just use him to be like that vicious killer. But Marrow just had this aggressiveness, and, you know, like she was like that. She was kind of like what Wolverine used to be like. And I just thought that was like an interesting character where she would use her like bones and stuff as weapons. Yeah. And they just let her drop.
I didn't read too much about her, so I didn't know she had a Wolverine persona. I literally know nothing about her, so if that's what she was like, then...
Have you ever seen X-Men Evolution? She was basically the female version of Spike from that series, and what happened to her? She showed up, and she was like the bones all over her body, and then she regressed, she fixed it, and she became more human-looking, and then after she left the X-Men, she went all bony again. From all accounts of things. Apparently she became very close to Storm as well, like almost a sisterly relationship when Storm was the leader of the team for a while. Because Cyclops had gone off for whatever reason. So, yeah, she was disappeared. So the teams, as they came back, the Uncanny team was Jean, Cable, who believed Cyclops was dead, so was wearing like Cyclops' mask around his neck as almost a homage, and he had like half his face covered by like it was like the most ridiculous over-the-top version of the face mask they wear, but it like covered his face as well. Cable, never do anything subtle, dear. Beast, who had like this flight goggles on and stuff, and Gambit.
This big thing on his back.
Yeah, like a jetpack almost. Gambit was on that team, and Psylocke? Am I wrong?
Yeah,
it's a weird team.
I think Shadowcat was there with cropped hair.
Who?
Shadowcat?
Yeah, I've just opened.
Shadowcat was there with who?
To the 2000s. Wait,
Oh, the
she had
dragon. Are you talking
cropped
about
hair,
Loki?
like-
Oh,
no.
Loki.
Her hair, her hair. Shadowcat was like shaved. Cropped.
Oh, a hair. Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, her hair. And then I think there was a new Thunderbird as well.
Oh, yeah, Thunderbird 3.
Neil Shara, yeah.
I can't ever, yeah.
So many Thunderbirds. Okay.
Yeah, and he's just hilarious.
He left very quickly. I don't remember him.
The fact that they give them numbers like the goddamn International Rescue as well is hilarious. Like Thunderbird 3, that's a red rocket ship, isn't it? No. No, it's so that, yeah, another Indian guy who's related to that family was with them.
No, jeez.
So yeah, Kitty was like,
Convoluted X-Men.
yeah, this is where Kitty, like, this was the prototype for what Claremont did in X-Men Forever. Because you could see that this is what he wanted to do with Kitty. He made her into Wolverine Light. Like, she took Wolverine's bone claws and, like, stuck them on. And she was, like, being all badass and had a shaved head. And it was like when Storm went all...
Is it a shaved head in X-Men Forever?
I don't know about she did it in X-Men Forever, but in this she did. She was, like, supposed to be a Wolverine-ish badass type character. And then on the other side, in the mansion... being more traditional X-Men. Oh yeah, Storm was on the other team as well. The other team was like...
Yeah, she had a big purple cape.
Oh yeah, Storm, because she'd been for a few designs. She had the Jim Lee one, then she had like a purple and blue suit, and then a black suit, and then she went to her traditional costume, or an updated version of her traditional costume, and then she went to this, which was kind of a purple cape thing. I did like it when she got the new one after that with the tiara and stuff like that. That was pretty.
Yes, agreed.
So Rogue and Gambit stuck around for a while. At least they were still on the team. X-Men and Archangel came along eventually. Okay, so when Revolution kicked off, here we go. When Revolution kicked off, the Uncanny X-Men team featured Phoenix, Storm, Gambit, Cable, and Beast. It was penciled by Adam Kubrick. This group travelled around the world to the likes of Italy and Russia. According to interviews, Gambit was the appointed leader of the squad. There is no evidence in the books to support this, however. Then the Adjective X-Men title by Lenin Francis Yu got to show, that was the arc, because obviously Claremont was writing the both, got to show his versions of the team, which was Rogue, Shadowcat, Colossus, Thunderbird 3, Psylocke, and Wolverine. And then the cast was like Cecilia Reyes, Charlotte Jones, Moonstar, Forge, and Tessa all showed up in the books. So Sage. So that was the teams during the after the Revolution storyline, and I know a lot of people not only look back and say that Claremont's return was a mistake because he wasn't very good, because he was basically trying to set things very slowly in the way he'd done before, and that would have been fine, and it all would have been revealed, and all the hints of what had happened would have been revealed had something not happened called X-Men, the Bryan Singer movie. And as a result, he was kicked off the books, and everything that he was going to set up, that was slowly being set up, was left and abandoned, and all these plot holes were left. So a lot of people look back on it, and the Revolution's form thing all over Marvel is looked back with not too fondly. So has anybody read any of this stuff?
Not a bit. I haven't read any of it.
No, I was going to ask, is this including the stuff with Death of Colossus, or are we going to move on to this?
Oh, is Colossus not dead at this point?
No. No, Moira McTaggart died after this. This all happened, and then no, Colossus was involved in this, and because there was more relationship. Joe's ringing. Sorry. Yeah, there was the relationship between Kitty and Colossus, and then eventually, after they got together, Moira died, and I'm just trying to think. Yeah, Moira died, and then Colossus died to get rid of the legacy virus. There was a whole storyline with that again before the team split up. The team split up just after Colossus's death.
Okay, right, I got
you. For the Extreme run, for the Extreme.
Oh, right, so Colossus died in Extreme, did he? Okay.
No, just before it started. Because then I think they also brought they brought Emma in, and I think Extreme ran parallel to New X-Men.
Yeah, he did. So yeah, at this point, they were still very much the X-Men in the 90s. The costumes were they were still costumes. Wolverine was still in his classic costume. Everybody else had redesigned costumes, but was still going with that sort of busy motif that had been going on. And after the Revolution thing, the team came back together, and once the storyline had gone on for a while, it just basically became a bi-monthly title where both X-Men were at the mansion and things like that after the teams came back together. And then, of course, there was the Legacy Virus storyline, which is where Colossus had died.
Yeah, oh, that was sad. I mean, I read this storyline, and it was very fitting because obviously the Legacy Virus caused Illyana's death, and for some reason, Colossus injecting himself into the virus released an antitoxin to destroy the virus. I can't remember the logic of why it worked, but it was very sad, and they did an epilogue with it about Kitty. I believe she travelled to Russia to spread what she believed at the time to be Pete's ashes, and it was very moving because just prior to this, we'd lost Moira, which was a big blow to the book. But to seemingly lose a big character like Colossus, it was like, wow, kind of anything could happen here. And I think Colossus's death eventually became the catalyst for we need to discuss how this team is going to work now, and it led to the new split teams of Grant Morrison with his new X-Men run and Claremont's Extreme run. I think Colossus's death kind of marked also the death of this little mini era, which is probably a good thing as well because it helped the book move forward. And obviously, like you said, Carl, the influences at this time were very much starting to come in from the X-Men movie. It definitely played on this.
Yeah, and that's what happened to the X-Men series pretty much, and all this stuff that was going on was pretty much abandoned. Because Marvel were going down the toilet, basically, and they brought Claremont back in the book, and things were going on, and they weren't too happy with what he was doing. Whether you liked it or whether you didn't like it, they weren't very happy. And then the X-Men movie came out, and I think unexpectedly for a lot of people became a huge smash success. And they were like, okay, a lot of new readers will be trying out X-Men. Our books are so confusing and so convoluted, even to the people who are the Advent readers, so we need to clean them up. We need to put them back to a core team that follows a linear storyline that makes sense. Let's do it and make it more like the movie. So what they did was, after Colossus' death, which of course we'd find out later was a fake out, as they all tend to be, they restructured the books. Joe Quesada, this is when he came to power, and they decided, okay, we want to make the X-Men look more like the movie versions. We want them in street clothes. So this was the birth of the black leather. This was the birth of the big X's on everything and things like that. And it's where the Xavier School became an actual school for the first time. It was they basically explained it by saying there was a massive mutant upburst of mutants being born, and so the Xavier School became an actual busy school with hundreds and thousands of students on the campus. The X-Men became as much teachers as they became X-Men, and the core group brought it together. All this stuff, now this is my problem with it, was that Grant Morrison obviously didn't know a lot of what had happened just before this, which is probably wise in what they did. But a lot of the stuff that was going on before it was kind of abandoned. Jean, all of a sudden, was not the Phoenix. Cyclops, all of a sudden, was not a revolutionary bad boy. And pretty much all the core team was just put back together, and it was kind of, the big reset button was hit without the reset button being hit. To be honest, that was probably the best thing for the book. I think this, in a lot of ways, I look back fondly because X-Men had become so confusing and so overpopulated. This is what needed to happen. We'll talk about Extreme X-Men in a minute, but this is a very polarizing topic in X fans at this era. So I'll go to you each, because we've lost Joe now. I'll go to you each, and I'll ask, what do you think of Grant Morrison's new X-Men and what it did for X-Men?
Yeah, did you know Grant Morrison's run is absolutely one of my favourite runs? As you said, Carl, it's very polarizing, but it did what the films did for superhero movies. It kind of helped re-establish what people know and expect, but it also began to ground it more in reality. Gone were the big extraterrestrial wars and stuff. This was the core X-Men team, and already it was starting to bring in more personal drama to the book, as well as, you know, the threat of evil mutants. The costumes looked great. The fact that this mansion was being used as a school was great. We had a new design for Beast. He'd become a bit more cat-like, and, you know, that was explained a bit more in Extreme. So, yeah, well, very, very
Extreme X-Men.
But that we'll go into after when we get to Extreme. And most importantly, how did you leave this out, Carl? Just before New X-Men started, and then obviously in New X-Men, Emma Frost was bumped up into main league X-Man. No longer was she training the young kids, she was a proper X-Man, which stirred a lot of controversy for certain characters like Wolverine, who didn't trust her at all. And that was a real bit of fresh air, you know, bringing Emma Frost in. But I also liked the storylines that were going on, and, you know, they brought in Cassandra Nova, Charles's evil twin sister, and I thought she worked very well.
Stupid. I don't mind her, but the fact that like, he killed his twin in the room.
It was a little over the top, but she worked really well as a villain, and it was really different to the usual Magneto aliens or Apocalypse.
Yeah, he's like, all the Shi'ar tech and all the sci-fi-ness was very 90s, and that was got rid of. Xavier no longer had a hover chair, he was back in a wheelchair. All the technology, apart from pretty much the Danger Room, was got rid of. And it was back to being more realistic, more modern.
They kept the Danger Room, though, didn't they?
Yeah, apart from the Danger Room, which of course would come to life, which we'll get into in a bit.
And don't forget, we've got also the Zorn character.
Zorn. I fucking love Zorn. Jesus Christ.
Who was ultimately revealed to be Magneto. Only, I believe
it wasn't Magneto. He was a brother of Zorn who wasn't Zorn.
I blame Chuck Austin completely. That's the stupidest.
At the time, the end of the Grant Morrison run for me was brilliant. Zorn was revealed to be Magneto. Magneto had been pulling the strings. Wolverine beheaded Magneto, and Jean died. It was such a big explosion. And then, obviously, we'd had the affair starting between Scott and Emma. This, to me, was a great run. It kind of got a balance between realism, soap opera, and superhero. And to me, those three combined is what I think makes the modern X-Men comic books work really, really well.
Right, Andrew, your thoughts on Grant Morrison's X-Men?
I remember somebody telling me that the reason why nobody really liked this run was because it completely ignored the earlier X-Men stuff. I started to read it. I was like, all right, let's see what this guy's talking about. And I read it, and I thought, this is actually one of the few times that I've seen the X-Men since I've read a couple of the 90s issues, and they still stayed on character, but it didn't feel like the old Claremont stuff. It just felt kind of off. And then I kind of read some more of a Grant Morrison stuff, and it felt like the old X-Men characters, but it also felt like they were growing up. And I think that's what I can call Grant Morrison's run. I think that's what he accomplished. He made the characters expand and actually just they grew out of their older shell, or their other shells. Sorry, and he made the characters grow up and it made them go out and do different things. Like Wolverine, he was kind of like repressing his very what's a good word? His berserker kind of self, and he kind of like started to calm down much more, and he was more of a Zen type of kind of guy. Granted, he's a really pissed off kind of character in the book, but he was also much more Zen-like. Emma Frost, I don't really think she grew up. I think she kind of stayed. Oh, she did kind of grow up. She became, at the beginning of the book, she was very egotistical, and she's still egotistical to this day, but she also learns to be more aware of what she's doing and to kind of have a good eye around things. Cyclops instead of not being repressed, he grew up, became more of a badass type of guy. And he was badass beforehand, but all I'm saying is all the characters grew up and became something different.
So yeah, I'd agree with that heavily. I think just to quickly touch on that point, I think this is the first time Cyclops actually became a likable character for me, and it became more so in the Astonishing run because they kind of made the team not just stereotypical superheroes. They developed their
He was flawed. He started showing him and Jean started having problems, and then
I think
he had an affair.
The Scott and Emma affair and the way that was dealt with, to me, that storyline was just as gripping as some of the big events of the past in the X-Men run, and that's all because the characters were really fleshed out and humanized. So I completely agree with Andrew on that point.
And I think what really helped Grant Morrison's run also was the fact that the majority of his storylines were 3 parts. I talked about this in a couple of the other parts in the 70s and 80s. But if these were like a couple of parts longer, I know the last story arc was like 5 or 6 issues. It was like a huge part because it was the finale of his run. But every other like story arc was like 3 or an occasional 4 issues, and it made if one person didn't like where the story was going, they could say, all right, it's only gonna be like 2 issues longer, then I can just go on and read.
Yeah, it was much more back to classic comics where it wasn't overly, what's the word, decompressed.
Decompressed, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't overly done that. It wasn't like, every, it's 2 pages to do a scene like it is nowadays. It told us a story and it got to the point.
Yeah. And I remember reading an interview that Grant Morrison did with like Comic Resources, and he said that his whole entire run was based on the story structure of the John Byrne and Chris Claremont run. Like the stuff with the Phoenix where she shows up, I guess at some point in the John Byrne run, that's where he kind of took his... how many issues was John Byrne and Chris Claremont's run? Was it like...
Not as many as you think. It was. I think it's from after the original Phoenix Saga. It wasn't during, through the end of Dark Phoenix Saga. I think it was probably maybe about 20 or 30 issues.
Okay. But basically, Chris, yeah, that's a good name. Chris Claremont, basically, he did the whole story structure the same thing Chris Claremont did when he did with John Byrne. And I found it kind of interesting because not so many people can, like... Grant Morrison's run did feel a lot different, but I didn't really see it too much as the same story structure that Chris Claremont did. But after looking through it again, it has the same story structure that John Byrne did. And it's a very interesting thing I didn't see before, but I just want to bring that out there. My thoughts on the run, it's one of my favorites. It was the first... I actually realized they didn't really use any old villains other than Magneto. Everything that came up in this book was absolutely new, and I loved it about it. And you see most of the time, most comic creators nowadays say something brand new is going to happen with this character when all of a sudden they just bring back some old villain again. And it's they're retreading an old plot, like an evil plan they did at some point. But this run actually, it felt refreshing and new. And after reading some of the newer X-Men stuff, well, they're still really good. They're retreading old stories, in my eyes at least. But I really enjoy Grant Morrison's run because he did new things.
Yeah, but I'd agree.
I think the only downside to this run, or there's a couple, is the art changes that really brought it down a lot. I think this is one artist named Igor Cody, and
yeah, there was basically what's his name? Oh, Jesus Christ! My comic card is revoked. The really famous Frank Quitely.
Yeah.
He was the base artist who did most of the work when it looked really, really good, and he has done a lot of fantastic work, with Grant Morrison on All-Star Superman and on Batman and Robin later on, and people really like his work especially with Grant Morrison. Frank Quitely's art is fantastic. The problem was when he was too busy or was working too slowly, and they had to bring in a fill-in artist who tried to do Frank Quitely, and it was horrible.
I think the guy that came after Frank Quitely was pretty okay. He did like Green Lantern Rebirth. He did fine there. It's like when you read the issue before they meet what's his name? The bad guy who has the U-Men, the leader of the U-Men. The issue before they meet the U-Men, you go to Igor's courtyard. It looks okay, and then you turn a couple pages like, oh my god, this is awful. This is really, really bad looking.
Especially
then,
Wolverine, he started looking terrible in some bits.
He's got like a caveman face, basically. He looks really, really bad. But I think every time he showed up, he didn't do an awful job. I think the last time he showed up, he did a pretty good story arc with Phantom X. Phantom X's first appearance, that was a good story arc.
Yes, agreed. Great character, and I think he's been brought back recently, which I'm thrilled about.
Yeah, I think the last thing I'm going to say about this, well, for now at least, I think the best character that Grant Morrison wrote on this book was Emma Frost, because she had the best lines, basically. Every time she showed up, she said something bitchy or something really egotistical, and you just couldn't really keep your eyes off her. I think she was the best part of the run in my eyes.
That's nothing to do with the fact that her costume was like...
is very revealing.
Yeah, everybody else's costume was like, we've got an X there. Or hers was like, no, the X is where there's going to be flesh.
Yeah.
And then don't forget when she was having the affair with Scott, she was putting herself in the Phoenix outfit as well.
Yeah, she's like, I know what you want. Here, Dark Phoenix. And then Jean walks in. Oh, shit.
Drama. But, and I think the most interesting concept to me that nobody, like, I haven't heard anybody talk about this, is the arc, the Weapon Plus arc, Assault on Weapon Plus, that. It expanded upon Wolverine's backstory, and it introduced the fact that Captain America was also a member of Weapon X, and then Wolverine's Weapon X is essentially, he's like that number they experimented on. He's that
Sabretooth, and...
Yeah. And the world stuff. Like, that entire arc, nobody talks about, and I think this arc is awesome. It's so cool. It's so filled with, like, ideas that...
It was cleverly done without disrespecting the past as well.
Yeah, they expanded upon. I keep using expanding. I gotta find a different word.
Elaborate.
Increase. Yeah, it increased the original ideas that nobody really took, and Grant Morrison made it better. Honestly, everything that came into this book was better. The only problem was he didn't have enough time to expand upon the ideas he brought up because he was on a tight schedule. I think what he was hoping on was that other writers would come in and expand upon those ideas, and they're doing it now, but at the time, because it was so polarizing and not some people dug it, they just kind of threw it over the roof, and just messed it up. They didn't really do anything with it. So I think he was expecting other writers to do something with the stuff that he did, but no one took that
only
chance.
Phantom X.
Yeah,
Phantom X is the only one that they've really continued. The rest of it
I mean, there's been other important characters come out of the run. There's been characters like Quentin Quire.
Cassandra Nova, Quentin Quire,
and Angel Salvador. All the kids that were involved. Shot Emma back.
There's Angel, there's Beak, but I haven't seen those two show up recently. I think they were in Vengeance or something. I don't know.
Angel's pregnancy storyline, that was really good as well. I thought that was dealt with very well. Do
you guys like Angel and Beak?
Angel Salvador is in the Angel Salvador that was in First Class, was introduced here as well. Yeah. She was.
I like the way
she was like teen pregnancy, wasn't it?
Yeah, teen pregnancy with Beak. I thought it was written very, very well. Yeah,
it's like 10 babies. She's gonna have a tough time with that. I don't know.
I wouldn't call her, but she was okay. That story was good. And wasn't she the person who shot Emma as well when they did Who Shot Emma?
Yeah, she was mind controlled by one of the Stepford Cuckoos to shoot her. Do you guys like the Stepford Cuckoos, by the way? Like,
I like them. I mean, a couple of them have died, obviously.
I couldn't name them by name, but I like them.
Yeah, they came in during this, and they were good, and they liked them, and they humanized Emma Frost in a way because she was such a cold bitch most of the time, but because she had these almost her daughters who she was very protective of.
I think just to expand on that was really interesting as well, following on from the book she was previously in, because I think her other group, the Hellions, were all killed as well when Genosha was destroyed.
Yeah, that's why all the Hellions were killed. This was Emma's path to the light side. All the Hellions were killed, and
Genosha was no longer.
Oh no, it was Sentinels. Or I think they killed them, and then that's when she joined the Phalanx Covenant, joined the X-Men, and then said, okay, I'll open a new X-Men Academy at the Massachusetts Academy, which became Generation X, with Banshee. And then she went to teach at Genosha, and the start of the Grant Morrison storyline is the big Sentinel that has been built by Cassandra Nova, by a descendant or I believe a nephew.
Yeah, like a son or descendant of
Trask.
The guy's name.
They build this huge version of a Sentinel, which didn't really look like a Sentinel, but it destroys Genosha. Apparently,
it was great because it also put the fear back into being a mutant, because I think mutants were out there so large during the 80s and 90s. By destroying Genosha, the safe haven, it was now a threat again to be a mutant.
Yeah, and Genosha,
something that hadn't been touched on since like the 60s.
Yeah, and Genosha was now Magneto's, like if everybody's ever seen Wolverine the X-Men, that's where this came from. It was Magneto's paradise. It was his sanctuary for mutants, so it had become a mutant island. And it was destroyed, and so many mutants were killed. A lot of them that were... Any mutants that you could name came back. But... even true. Negasonic Teenage Warhead. Oh, boy.
Oh.
But, yeah, all of them got killed. Emma Frost seemed to be the only survivor. The X-Men picked her up, and she was on the team from that point, along with her Step for Cuckoos. My take on the Grant Morrison era, I really, really enjoy it. And I did say my thing with it is that they did abort things that happened before, but that was a good thing. They expelled all the convoluted time travel nonsense of the 90s. And just got rid of it. And went back to the basics of X-Men, mutants, same modern times, and it was much more a character drama again. It was about the people. And that was shown by the changing costumes. Now, you know, given my druthers, which would I rather have? Yeah, I'd rather have the X-Men in costume, because that's their classic looks. If you think of Wolverine, you think, as silly as the look may be to the uninitiated, Wolverine's look is the yellow outfit with the black mask and the blue. That or the tan. That's Wolverine, and a lot of the others obviously toned downs. I like the movie-looking outfits. I don't think they looked as good as the movie ones because the big neon yellow X's on the jackets, especially. It's pretty weird.
I don't really dig the movie ones as much. You say you did like the movie ones or no?
I like the movie ones better than I like these ones.
Really? Yeah. If the movie had have used spandex like Spider-Man. Because the X-Men is more, realism in a way, I think it would have looked silly had they not used the leather in the movie.
Yeah, obviously that's fine. With the movies, but they obviously try to translate this into the comics.
But then saying that, First Class's uniforms did look pretty good. I want them to put the more comic booky looking costumes, but do what they did with like Magneto's costume in that movie. Have it be kind of a nice amalgamation between the two, where it still looks like clothing that you'd actually wear. It's not tights, but it still has the same colour scheme and evokes the same thing. Like, I think they could have... I think that's fine, and I like the look of the... And what I really like is, since then, it's become like the X-Men's casual gear. It's like if they're going about on town, they'll wear the X jacket that they wore during this time period and stuff. I really like that, and I like overall like these costumes and things like that. And as I say, it put the X-Men back to being more about character drama. The Cassandra Nova storyline, the concept of it was pretty stupid to me, but there's so many of those. But it was executed well. What she did to Beasts was obviously horrifying. The Quentin Choir breakout thing and all that, he started a riot at Xavier's, and Emma Frost.
What pisses me off about that, the Quentin Choir thing? Didn't they say he died in that storyline?
No, I don't know whether they say he died.
Like he expanded his...
He ended up in a tube in Beast's lab.
Well, he's very much alive now. I don't remember when that changed.
I know how that changed, because I just read it last night, and I will get to that.
Can I just make a quick segue, just while we're talking about the costumes and the more realism of this era? Just a quick mention of Joe Quesada. You mentioned, he'd been brought on as editor-in-chief at this point, and I think at this point Joe was what Marvel needed. He very much kind of brought Marvel away from what it was in the 90s and said, look, this is where we need to be now. I think by the time like Siege and even Secret Invasion came around, he was starting to outstay his welcome. But in the 2000s, I think we've got to thank Quesada for agreeing to bring the universe away from what it was becoming.
It was his influence that made the X-Men more like the movie ones, but still keeping this. What I like about Grant Morrison's run is it's more accessible. It tells a nice linear story with a nice core group. There's not too many characters. It doesn't get convoluted as to, there are 5 stars of the book, and there's these co-stars who are kind of around as villains and heroes and stuff like that. But there's the 5 core stars, and you follow them and you expand upon them. If you have too many characters and too many convoluted stuff going on, you can't really service them all. And what it did was have the look of the movie and the feel of the movie, but still kept the spirit of the comics and went back more to the human drama and more of the characters that were in the Claremont run, more than the 90s stuff had done. And by now, of course, art-wise, by the time he left, everybody was kind of sick of what Quesada had done, with every fucking guy turning up was in a long leather trench coat and black sunglasses.
No costumes anymore.
Yeah, people were sick of that by then, but this was something new at the time.
I think the thing with Joe Quesada, back in the day, like you said, he wanted to change things. He took chances that not too many people would take. Like the Max series. Have you guys read any of that stuff?
No.
Well,
the which, sorry?
Like the Punisher Max stuff, or like.
Oh yeah.
Max,
I've read some of the Max one. Yeah.
Like that, like Garth and I said, I want to take Punisher out of the normal Marvel universe. I want to have him in my own place. I want to do my own things with him. And he said, okay, let's create an entire line so you can do these things. And like in the Max, not the Max stuff, but the stuff that Joe Quesada did back in the day, he took chances with it, and that was the Joe Quesada we all know and love. Like the Daredevil stuff, the people he put on books, he understood what their the good qualities were when they were writing, and he put them on the right things, and he made good changes to Marvel. I think what changed it was Civil War. Civil War was it was beyond successful. It was selling 300,000 copies, I think. And they overdid it, and he got too cocky, and now it's just become a trend that's getting really, really old. But that's in my eyes what happened with Joe Quesada. But
yeah, I mean, Joe also brought in the Ultimate Universe. Whilst I'm not a fan. For quite a long time, the Ultimate Universe was used if they wanted to retcon or change things. They would do it in that universe.
And I think this series, this Grant Morrison series, is a big reason as to why that failed. Because the whole point of the Ultimate Universe was to be accessible for the new fans who like the movies. So we're going to bring in anybody who just wants to jump on and just kind of thing. But they did things to the characters to make them more modern and more edgy and things like that. And, why I enjoyed the overall stuff, it was like, okay, this is just a completely different version of the characters. And by the time you get to Ultimates and they're just killing Emma Frost and Nightcrawler off screen, you're like, screw this.
Jeff Loeb, you bastard, I'll get you.
Yeah, and it was lots of stupid stuff happening there. And why, in the meantime, you're making all this happen for X-Men, but on the other side, in the 616 universe, you're also making the X-Men more accessible and more realistic looking and kind of thing. So Grant Morrison almost did what Ultimate was doing, but better and still with the history.
What I will say about Quesada is, thank God he didn't do to X-Men what he did to Spider-Man. Yeah. When Spider-Man was retconned, I have never read it from that point onwards. I stopped reading.
Yeah.
I don't like Cyclops being married. Let's just reboot the entire thing. Are you guys okay with that? Okay, let's reboot it. Let's go.
Yeah.
I think two more things we can say about Grant. I'm going to say two more things about the Morrison era. How do you guys? I think we already talked a little bit about Zorn, but how do you think he executed it well? Would you still think he would change the ending Magneto thing, or do you think he?
I thought the mystery was good when you find out that the whole riot was his idea and everything and was all influenced by him.
Yeah, I would never have seen it coming. I thought it was executed brilliantly. And what a finale to the run.
Yeah. I loved his characterization of Magneto. The only thing I didn't like was that when he was like addicted to that drug or whatever, and he needed that to be powerful, and
Yeah.
then he's just started offing people randomly and things like that. And I think that's what the retcon of making that not be Magneto, of course, obviously because of his death.
In my head, it's still Magneto. I just can't get over that it was retconned.
Yeah, I think they made Magneto more evil to a point than he'd ever been, and I think they not only wanted to detract from that, they also wanted to bring Magneto back. So for that reason, it was
But chopping his head off to get rid of him again, that was pretty final, right?
Yeah.
You gotta do what you gotta do, I guess, you know?
As I said, an epic conclusion. I loved the finale. I thought it was great. It was the A-list X-Men with this new Emma Frost that they really, at this point, had been made. The character drama between Cyclops and the love triangle was the way that the affair was handled, with the fact that they never really touched each other. It was like a psychic affair. That was brilliant stuff. Yeah. And then Jean, because she's a psychic, she like walks in on psychically, and at this point she'd now. Again, this comes back to the fact that they did a big reset, is that Jean became the Phoenix, then she wasn't the Phoenix, then she was the Phoenix again. During this...
she was too powerful for her own good, which is why I think the death really worked.
Yeah, and she came in, she was all, as the Phoenix, and stuff like that, and then they never really got to resolve that.
Man, do I miss Jean, though. Is she back yet?
But hey, the younger version from a different time period of Jean is coming back, so that's a good thing.
So yeah, there was a bang, everybody's fighting and all this stuff, so they never got to really resolve that, and Magneto kills Jean Grey. And a lot of people have said that this was Morrison's aim, and to me, Jean Grey is a better character when she's dead.
Yeah,
because
I can agree with that.
How good she is remembered better when she's dead, and I think she should have stayed dead after the original Dark Phoenix saga. I think that's a far better way for her to go out than any other. But she died here, Cyclops said goodbye, all that kind of stuff, and that was the end of the run.
And touching on Jean, Scott and Emma as well, in this and in Astonishing and, everything that's come after, I had always been a big Scott and Jean shipper. I liked them as a pair. But now, I would be so angry if they ever split up Scott and Emma. That pairing just works incredibly well. And
this was the start of it. This run, it was all Grant Morrison.
Yeah, exactly. And Emma has helped to make, Scott a better character as well. If this was ever to end now, I would be so gutted. I think the Emma-Scott pairing is one of the best things to happen to X-Men in decades. Big change, and it worked.
What would you guys say is the best part? Like, what was your favorite parts of Grant Morrison's run? Like, story-wise or idea-wise?
I love the finale, and I love the affair, and the way that Emma was just this seductive bitch, and she was doing it because she wanted Cyclops and fuck Jean Grey, and they were having problems anyway, so of course Scott was vulnerable and would go into her, and just great stuff. And just the art as well. Especially there's that issue where the Shi'ar arrive to pick up Xavier. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, the artwork was great. For me, the affair was the top, then the finale, but Phantom X as well. I thought, what a great new addition that really worked. I'm a big Phantom X fan, so just to throw his name.
That was all to do with the Weapon X program and stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah. Like he said, he was a member of Weapon X stuff, but yeah. Yeah, I think that's all I'd say about Grant Morrison's run.
Didn't he die during this as well? Like
I don't think so. Did he?
I think he died during that whole, he turned bad, and then there was that whole thing in the Euro tunnel, I think. Could be wrong.
I don't believe so.
I don't remember this.
I might be wrong. I might be thinking of something else. Anyway, so, yeah, that big blast happened, and X-Men becomes really popular, actually, because, the movie came out, and then there's this comic that's a more simplified, more realistic, lots of drama going on X-Men, so a lot of people liked it. A lot of X-fans who were more into the X-Men being more superheroes weren't too fans of it, and that's kind of caused the problems with it. And
I think it sold pretty well, though, compared to the other X-Men comics that were coming out at the time.
It did really well, and that's what I'm saying, because it was drawing on... It was a perfect time for it. I think it was a year too late. They should have had it the year before. But ultimately, having an X-Men book that kept the spirit of the originals and the history of the originals while still doing what Ultimate did, but doing it better than Ultimates, is what killed Ultimate X-Men. On the other side, though, there was the much more superhero, because what had happened was Claremont, we came back to the books and they said, okay, Quesada Game to Paris says, okay, we're going to put a top creator, Grant Morrison, on this, and we're going to have him redo X-Men to make it more, accessible and like the movies. So he said, okay, so do you want to take one of them and have to answer to Morrison, or do you want to take your own side book and do whatever you want with it, with your own team? I was like, yeah. So he took all the characters that Morrison didn't want, such as Rogue, Gambit, Storm, Sage, Bishop.
Yep.
And they went off and formed the Extreme X-Men, in which we're searching after Destiny's Diaries, and they remained much more they remained in their costumes.
Do you want me to start on this one?
It was a nice alternative. So, but yeah, Ben, you're a big fan of this, so why don't you go?
This run for me, it started off well, and it kind of, to me, it seemed like Claremont had an idea where it was going, and by the end of the run, it was so tied up in its own plots that it became a bit convoluted. But when it started, the team basically were now led by Storm. Was going to look for Destiny's Diaries to help stop some terrible threat. I forget what that is now. That's how good it was. But I did enjoy this one because it was a nice opposite from New X-Men. Whilst I did like it, it was good. The first issue, we had a new villain coming in, Vargas, who was kind of the main villain for a lot of this run. And he ended up really beating Beast to a pulp, which resulted with him, I think, going back to the new X-Men team, but also seemingly killing Psylocke as well. And it was a big start to the book, it's like bam, and well-established.
Well, this was done so that Jean could be Psyche again, right? Because they did that whole thing in the 2000 where they switched powers, and Jean became super telepathic. And she was like super, and then Psylocke was just telekinetic. So they killed off Psylocke so that Jean could become telekinetic again. From what
in this, we also had Sage, who was formerly Tessa of the Hellfire Club, who had she was like a living computer, and a great new addition who I really enjoyed. And for the first time, with Extreme X-Men, I actually liked the character of Bishop because he just came across as this cool cop guy, not this time traveling.
He cut the mullet. He looked more like Sam Jackson.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he was more Sam Jackson. Yeah, exactly. But he was great in this, and there was as it started, there was a lot of sexual tension between Bishop and Storm, actually. But as the story developed, he became a lot closer to Sage. But after this run, nothing was done with any of that. And they introduced other characters too. Like there was a new X-Men joined, an Australian character called Heather Cameron, I believe, and she was lifeguard, and she turned her skin to gold. Or she developed she developed an ability to whatever. She was a bit like what's the guy in First Class called? Darwin. Her powers were a bit like Darwin. Yeah. But she was a cool addition. There was her and her brother, but Lifeguard was the one who kind of stayed on. It started off well. It was an interesting run. Again, the characters of Bishop and Sage and Storm really, stole the show for me. But as it went on, the Diaries of Destiny became so confusing to what it was leading towards, and eventually Vargas was killed, and then I think at some point some alien race came into it, and I was like, oh, Claremont, what are you doing? He started the book off well, but by the time it come to the end, I think a lot of people wanted Claremont out and had resigned themselves to the fact that he wasn't the writer that he used to be. And I think maybe that's partly down to what readers were getting with new X-Men. Maybe Claremont's style was becoming a lot more outdated. When
I went to read one of his ones from 2000, I was like, dear God, how many words can you fit on a page, Claremont? He did
that in the earlier X-Men issues too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that we've come to adapt to now. Marvel, is all about these big splash pages now and less words. So I didn't mind that from Claremont. One thing I did love about Extreme X-Men was Salvador LaRocca's artwork. It was a very beautifully illustrated book. I love LaRocca. And I'm not sure if it was watercolor painted,
Especially Storms.
And the costume, the Storm's costume was become the iconic one that we all know and love. Bishop looked a bit better in his Sam Jackson guys. Rogue looked a bit more badass too. Thunderbird 3 was also involved in this book. But I cannot remember why he ended up leaving. But yeah, it was a great book that had a lot of potential, but ended up getting lost in itself, which was ultimately the book's downfall. But I think this book also, if I'm correct, I think the Extreme one was the first time that it delved into Rogue's past.
Yeah, did she inherit a mansion from Destiny and stuff, and she became super rich?
Yeah. We found out a lot of her past. I'm not sure if that was because of the movie. And a character was brought in called Marie Dancanto. Now, Marie Dancanto is Rogue's real name in the movie, but in the book she was this young girl. I forget why she was there now, but it all tied into Rogue somehow, I think. And so it was good character development for Rogue. Before now, Rogue hadn't been really developed, but her background anyway. So we got more on Rogue. And as a whole, this was a time for Marvel as well when we were getting more backgrounds, because at the same time, I don't know if we're going to touch on this later, they also released Origin. We finally got the origin of Wolverine in the early 2000s, which is one of the best books I've ever read.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a second.
But yeah, getting ahead of myself. So yeah, Extreme X-Men, worth a read. Commit to it. It's something you've got to commit to. It's a lot more slower paced than what we would expect now, but it does become very tangled up in itself. And when the alien races come into it, I was like, oh dear Lord, it's the 70s again.
Andrew, have you read any of this?
I have read none of it. I might check it out though, because Ben's really ecstatic over it. But
it was a nice alternative to what Morrison was doing. It was a more superhero.
Don't get me wrong, I preferred New X-Men. I did prefer New X-Men.
Yeah, New X-Men's what you want if you want more of the down to earth character drama, which is what I prefer. But if you wanted the more superhero, 70s, 80s X-Men, that Extreme X-Men was for you. Definitely.
Yeah, I liked.
I do know that Salvador Lorca was he stayed around for the X-Men books for a really long time. I don't like the current Salvador Lorca because he's a really good artist when it comes to getting on time for the books, but the current one isn't the same as the X-Men Salvador Lorca to me. That's just my personal opinion. But I will admit that Salvador Lorca is a great X-Men artist, and I might check out the Extreme X-Men issues at some point in the future if I have enough time to. But yeah, I haven't read any of it.
Well, Rogue was the most developed character that she ever got during this. She got a backstory told. She got a relationship with Gambit was embellished on a little bit more. She started to control her powers, although that wouldn't come in for another couple of years. The main thing that happened, though, was that she had her ass kicked along with a lot of the team, because I remember there was an issue of New X-Men where they did a crossover where they got their entire ass handed to them, the entire team, and Rogue got so injured that she lost Miss Marvel's powers. And this is where she lost those powers for good. She never flew or was super strong again.
Yes, I forgot about that, yes. Yeah, you're right.
So that was obviously a big milestone for that character to just become the touch character and get away from more of the super heroic version of herself. And I enjoyed the bits of it that I read. I really liked Bishop in it. I really liked the team, and as I say, it was kind of the Rogue Storm book, which was cool because I like those two characters and Gambit as well. All right then, so. Another thing that was happening during this time, and this was again done by Grant Morrison, which we really haven't touched on, is something. There was a invention who some people hate it, some people like it, some people are indifferent. Secondary mutations. Now, this was a thing that I think the problem that a lot of people have with it is the secondary mutations seem to have absolutely nothing to do with the first mutations, and some of them make no goddamn sense. Beast's secondary mutation. Beast's secondary mutation is that he became Cat Beast. Okay. But Blue Furry Beast wasn't a mutation. So that doesn't make any sense.
Oh. Now I get it. Okay. That is kind of confusing.
Yeah, but wasn't this retconned to be Cassandra Nova?
I suppose, yeah, it was a retcon that she changed it and stuff. I suppose somebody saw the plot holes in this. But Grant Morrison's original implication was that the secondary mutation made him look like a cat, which I guess that means that if he didn't have taken that formula in the 60s, I guess he would have been a flesh-looking cat, I guess.
Can I just add in that? In the Extreme run, Sage had the power. This relates to the topic. Sage actually healed Beast and brought him up to the more Beast we have now. She had a power to evolve mutants. Somehow she did it to Beast. She got Beast
it was
more
her
back
who did
away
it.
from the cat-like.
Okay.
Yeah,
that
I'm
makes
pretty
it. That
I'm pretty certain.
So yeah, we got Beast looking like the blue version of the Lion from the Wizard of Oz from then on, which I prefer Beast.
Oh, sorry.
Especially,
I like both Beasts.
Go on, sorry.
Yeah, I love Beast. He's literally my favorite X-Men character out of most of them. But I like both Beasts. I think they're both fine in what they are. But yeah, I don't know. Cat Beast does have that kind of iffy kind of feel to it. But I like
it's
both
more
Beasts.
realistic to draw. But to me, if you drew Beast as how he is in X-Men 3, then, for instance, I think you can make the 8 Beast look more realistic. But I don't have a problem with the Cat Beast. I just prefer the Ape Beast is all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The
Are we going
other
to talk about
mutations
Chuck
was-
Dixon's run?
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. We got the other secondary mutations was Emma developed her diamond powers during the time, which was retcon to find out that Cassandra Nova did it to her. I was confused
She
by
did that as well.
Yeah, because that was in Astonishing, and that never really was resolved in Astonishing, so I didn't know whether that was resolved elsewhere. Like, apparently she did it to her so she could survive the attack on Genosha or something. So I don't know.
Oh, yes, I remember, yeah.
Something like that. So she got that. Angel got healing blood.
Oh.
Because, of course, by this time, he became Angel again, not Archangel.
Do you guys see birds like regenerating their feathers or their skin?
I guess the idea is supposed to be more biblical. Like now he's like Christ. He can heal you with his blood.
God.
And now we've got...
Yeah, there was a couple of others, but that was mainly it. Jean, again, became the Phoenix before she died, even though she was the Phoenix for about 10 years before that, but, whatever.
Can I just point something out? Was it during New X-Men that Professor Xavier started walking again?
No.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Was it?
I'm sure Zorn healed him, didn't he?
For the third time.
Yeah, he did.
It was revealed to be Magneto. Magneto was using nanites to do it because he crippled him again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I give him credit though that two things have stuck from this. They've gone back and forth with things on X-Men so many times, but Xavier since then has stayed walking, and Jean has stayed dead. So they've managed to keep those two intact from the Morrison run. So they respect Morrison enough to keep that going. And Emma's stayed with Cyclops as well. So, although I don't think the intention with Morrison's run was for Emma and Cyclops to become a couple, I think she was the seductress to ruin Cyclops' marriage with Jean. I think what I like so much about that is that before that, Jean and Cyclops were just the perfect couple. They were the Reed and Sue Richards. They were just so perfect, and there's nothing wrong with them. Yeah. This stuff. Secondary mutations, good. No, helped characters. I think a lot of times for me, it was an excuse to make characters who were non-combative characters more powerful in battle, which I think just shows the uncreativeness of some of the creators.
One thing I would
Yeah.
like to know is with Emma's mutation to Diamond, when she got shot, she, just was blown into smithereens. Yet Beast, putting every piece back together, somehow made her come alive again. I was like, what?
No, Phoenix
is going
comes
on?
in and forms them all together.
Did Jean do that?
Yeah, he got all the pieces together, and then she was having a piece for Beast, and she gave it back to him, and then she used her powers to make her alive.
Okay. Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, I was getting a bit confused there. I was like, yeah, no, you're right. It's been a long, long time, but yeah, no, sorry.
I've got all the issues right here, so I'm good. I'm ready.
Yeah. All right, so let's then touch on... Yeah, okay. Chuck Dixon's run on Uncanny, while Morrison was running Adjectiveless, which was now not Adjectiveless because it was New X-Men. Uncanny was under the command of Chuck, and he did a few things that annoyed people the most, but mostly Nightcrawler.
Azazel.
Oh, I don't think I've even read this run.
Okay, so this was where we find out that Nightcrawler is half demon. Azazel, I think they've retconned it to make him a mutant now, thank God. But no, Azazel, all that stuff, they retconned his whole backstory and did a lot of stuff that people really didn't like. This was also the time when they had that very religious storyline that was very preachy and had people killing mutants for religion and things like that, but that was such a oversimplified version that really upset people. And I remember reading these, and he stayed on even after Joss Whedon revamped the series into.
He went on to the X-Men stuff.
Yeah, he kept on doing it.
Well, not X-Men, but Adventures. Sorry.
I remember reading Uncanny during this time, and not only did it become this was the run that made Uncanny not the main X-Men book. I mean, obviously the 90s had done that with the Jim Lee thing and with that launch, but Uncanny really was the second tier or even third tier book at this point. And his writing, he just did not get the characters. When the characters spoke, they didn't seem to have their voice. That was my main problem with Dixon.
I haven't read it, but I've heard nothing but bad things. I think they changed teams a lot. I think wasn't Juggernaut on the team?
I think it was the new X-Men team plus a few of the others, like Nightcrawler and things like that.
Open and it says Chamber Stacy X.
So yeah, Chuck Dixon's run, I haven't read much of it because I didn't really care to, and I heard a lot of bad things. Has anybody read a lot of it?
Okay, so it's there to read, folks.
Yes. So
if you want to read something really bad, check out that.
Yeah. So the other major thing that came out of the early 2000s was Wolverine Origins, which told the Wolverine origin story of him being James Howlett, of pretty much what the movie was based on, but a very simplified, crappy version of it, and the idea that Sabretooth was his half-brother and things like that were all done during this, and so
that was more implied.
Yeah, it was implied.
It was more implied in Origin. They had the character of Dog, who was very much like Sabretooth, and the Creed wasn't Creed the Howlett's caretaker or something.
Yeah, so it was implied
it was a brilliant one.
Yeah, and it was a single issue story. It had a love interest for him where it was a red-headed girl who it made sense. That's why he likes Jean so much, even though he doesn't remember this woman, and obviously his memory gets wiped, and then he goes off with wolves at the end and stuff like that. This was really the definitive origin for Wolverine, and I really enjoyed it. I thought this was a good story. I liked how it explained things in a way that you didn't expect. Like that he had a life hundreds of years ago and that kind of stuff. He's always kind of a vampire at that point. He was alive during the 18th century and things like that. I liked it.
I've not read it, but I've heard mixed things about it. Like, this is not what I was expecting for Wolverine's backstory to be and stuff like that. I think parts of it do look pretty interesting, like the Bony Claw Wolverine, and then the whole 1800s aspect of it. I do like those things, and like him living in the woods with a bunch of wolves. I do like that. I haven't read enough to really comment too much about it, but I enjoy the concept of it. Yeah.
For me, Andrew, you need to read this because it was very polarizing. Some people thought, oh, this is going to make Wolverine lose all his mystique. That we don't, that we're going to know everything. So what's the point now? But to me, it gave him a lot more layers, it gave him a lot more layers and really added to the character. And we saw a real different side to him and a more vulnerable side. Maybe it wasn't the origin that people expected for Wolverine, but for me, I think that's what made it work. And the artwork in this is absolutely phenomenal. And I would say to anyone who's not read it, do not let the crappy Wolverine movie put you off reading it, because it's an excellent little arc.
The first 5 minutes of that film, imagine that stretched out and explained and made into a real story, basically.
And it has more character, and you feel for Logan, but also for the other characters.
I need you to go on. Sorry about all the...
All right, no problem. We're almost finished anyway, so we're good. We're just gonna.
All right.
So, alrighty. Catch you.
We're gonna have to find a way to edit all those things out.
I will.
Sorry about all the interruptions, guys.
No problem. Catch you later.
No problem. Don't worry, mate. Do you want me to continue?
Yeah, go
on. Another thing about this is that with Origin, whilst we do get a lot of Logan's past, it isn't enough to ruin the character that some fans feared it would.
There's 200 years
would lose
left,
his mystique.
Yeah, there's 200 years
exactly.
And
we've
got an X program that's some of it's been filled
in,
some of it hasn't.
Exactly, it leaves us with a lot more questions. And there's the Origins series going on now, and even that is still gives us a lot more questions to Wolverine. And I think dealing with his past, it's just developed the character, because I think he's got his memories back now as well, which to me was a real smart
I think that happened
move,
during the Grant Morrison run, or in Uncanny, one of the two.
Yeah, it was a very smart move, because now he can draw on that real rage. We know what's fueling Logan now, and it's a great little arc. And again, just don't let the movie put you off it. It's a great read.
Indeed. My one thing of contention here, and a lot of things that really annoyed people, seemed to stick in them, was the fact that Wolverine had bone claws here. That was the thing here, was that the claws didn't come from the adamantium. Of course, they had the idea introduced when he got the adamantium ripped out of him, he had the bone claws, but this was said in stone that he always had the claws, and the metal was just down to them, which to me made a bit more sense anyway, so I was fine with it. Retcons are fine, if they make bare sense.
I liked the bone claws. It made a lot of sense to me, because at the end of the day, Logan's powers are his healing factor, not the claws. And so to have the bone claws and not just the adamantium, I was fine with that. To me, it didn't change the character in any way that he originally had bone claws. And hadn't the bone claws already been addressed anyway when the skeleton was ripped off them by Magneto?
Yeah, it was. But this is with like confirming it that the bone claws weren't.
Yeah.
So some people got annoyed about that. All right then. So, anything else in the early 2000s that we haven't covered? So really, up until Joss Whedon's is what we're trying to cover here.
No, I think I'm just looking on Wikipedia now just to see if we've missed anything. It says Morrison concluded with Planet X, and they did Here Comes Tomorrow, didn't they? The X-Men in the Future was the very last arc after the finale. Morrison did. I'm just refreshing my memory of it. Featured many controversial elements such as Cyclops moving forward with his relationship with Emma, the Stepford Cuckoos being revealed as a development in the Weapon Plus program, John Sublime being a sentient bacteria bent on bringing evolution to a halt, and hints that the Xavier Institute student Ernst and Cassandra Nova are the same person. It was. I don't remember too much about it.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've read
to
it.
the father.
It's been a while since I've read it. A lot of the intricacies have kind of been lost, but I remember the broad strokes.
I think John Sublime got possessed by Phoenix or something, or Jean turned up in the future, but just to sacrifice herself again.
Yeah.
To me, I always forget about that little arc because the Magneto arc was the finale to me. Here Comes Tomorrow was just an average little epilogue that didn't need to exist.
Yeah. All right then, so that will do it for our coverage of the X-Men in the early 2000s. This may end up being a 3-part and a 2-part because we've read most of this era. There's so many events and so many storylines that go on in the modern era that to cover it all, it takes a long time. And just deconstructing, 4 years here. 4 years. Wow. It's taken us an hour and a half,
Astonishing and House of M and Decimation. I dread to think how long those 3 will take.
Exactly. So hopefully next time we get to have Eric on or anybody else on, I'll work on getting some new people actually that I'm working on right now so we can have a more varied roundtable. But thank you. Well, Joe was in at the start. Thank you for trying.
Yeah, we're really sorry that we lost Joe. We're really sorry. He can't help it. Internet connections, but we are sorry, and Andrew too.
Yeah, Andrew. Thank you, Andrew, for joining us for most of it. Thank you, Ben, as always, and we will see you next time. We'll see you next time for the next one.